Today I choose to follow you.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, the 29th of December. We're sliding into the new year rather fast. Not so long to go, but I trust that this Wednesday you've got a decent cup of coffee and you're ready for coffee with God. If you have your Bibles, turn to 1 Kings chapter 3. 1 Konings, hoofstuk 3. Awesome cup of coffee. 1 Kings chapter 3. King Solomon has just been made king. He's the son of David. He's not the oldest son, but he's the son commissioned or appointed by God to rule on David's throne. And right at the outset, God asks him, "What can I do for you?" And he shows incredible insight. He says here to God in verse 6, he says, "Then Solomon said, you've shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father, according as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you, and you have reserved for him this great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day." He knew that his calling, his commissioning, his appointment, his kingship isn't because of his son, the fact that he's the son of the king, but it's because of God, God's blessing, God's will, God's direction, God's calling for him, God's purpose for his life. And yeah, he wasn't the oldest, but he was appointed. And he recognizes in the outset of this conversation that it's not his right, it's God's blessing that he's sitting on the throne. And as we face 2022, let me start by saying we go into 2022 by God's grace. It's God's blessing that we've got through 2021 and we're going into 22, Lord willing. And may you see it as the Lord's blessing and the Lord's purpose for your life. Let's shake off everything that brought us to here and let's give thanks to God for the fact that we are here. And then he says in verse 9, he says, this task that you've called me, this leadership that you've placed me into, this responsibility that you've given me is so huge. I give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? As we go into 2022, I guess there's many things we can wish, there's many things we can want, there's many things we can desire. Peace, health, safety, financial betterment. There's so many things we can ask for and wish for ourselves and for the people around us. And yet Solomon asks the right thing. He says, give me an understanding. Give me an understanding heart so that I can understand dealing with people. And help me to judge. Help me. You see, we see people's actions and we judge them by their actions. When we judge our actions, we don't actually judge ourselves by our actions. We judge ourselves by our intentions because we know what the motive within our heart is. But when we look at other people, we just see what they're doing and we don't know what the motive, what the intention of their heart is. And Solomon asks for an incredible thing. He says, give me discernment. Gee my onderskeiding vermoë, sodat ek kan bepaal die goed en die verkeerd. En gee my insig, gee my agter die skerms inligting, sodat ek kan besef hierdie persoon het dit nodig om 'n beter dag te kan beleef. Hierdie persoon het hierdie bemoediging nodig. Hierdie persoon het hierdie help my om te verstaan, help my om te onderskei, help my om te weet wat is dit wat die mense om my nodig het om vir hulle 'n beter dag te skep en te gee. And if we can go into 2022 asking the Lord to help us understand our interaction with people and understand ourselves better, we will have an awesome 2022. So there's a couple of days to go till the 31st, which is Friday. And why don't you take some time today just to reflect in the middle of this week and ask the Lord to give you a better insight into yourself. And what does he ask for? An understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours? Great can be great in numbers, but great can also be I want to put a 10 on every single person that I see, and every person that I go into 2022 with. Yeah, let's not carry this year's baggage into tomorrow. Never mind into next year. Let's start dealing with the things that hold us down, that slow us, that bog us down. Let's start looking at the great people that God brings into our life. The lost, the least, the lonely. Doesn't matter how you describe them, but they're great people because they're still breathing. God has still given them life, and God is still working on them. And may you see people in that light this Wednesday, going into every tomorrow that you receive from the Lord's gracious hand. May Solomon's prayer and his asking as he steps out into this great new season of his life where he takes over from his father, the greatest king that ever lived in Israel's history. And he seeks to rule on a throne that his father set up for him. But he realizes that in his God's wisdom, God's understanding, God's discernment, may we go into whatever the Lord calls us to do. And I don't know what your purpose, where you find yourself, what your plans are for 2022. But may you find them in the Lord, and may you be found to be a person who understands yourself and understands people and discerns the good and the evil in people, and that you act accordingly to, in a sense, protect yourself, but in a better sense, to bring the best out in every single person you meet, because they're a great, great people. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your coffee. If you've got tea, well, try and enjoy it. I know it's difficult, but you poured it for yourself, so you might as well finish what you started. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Lord bless you.
We will spend our